Alright, this is speed, velocity, and acceleration part 3. So let's skip ahead to where we were at the end of part 2. Which was right here. So the last thing that you did in part 2 was you wrote down these pages. So let's move on ahead to part 3 and really get into some problem solving. Alright, rearranging equations, important science skill. This is an equation that you might see in your math class. 10 equals x over 5. By the way, I want to make sure that you guys are really comfortable with the idea that we could also write x equals 5, x divided by 5, like that. I want to make sure you guys understand that those are exactly the same thing. If you take your little slanty lines like this, and if you make them just a straight horizontal line, you're going to find all these problems that we solve a lot easier. So anyhow, here's the problem. 10 equals x over 5, and you might be asked in a math class to solve for x. Now that's not a very difficult problem. I know what you would do. You would multiply both sides by 5. So to get rid of this 5, we'd multiply this side by 5. We'd multiply this side by 5. So it would look something like this. We'd multiply it by 5. This would cancel, and then we multiply this side by 5 too, right? That's what you would do in your math class. Like so. So that takes us to 10 times 5 is equals x, so x equals 50. Easy problem, right? You do that kind of thing all the time. Some of you have done those for years. Alright, now what if instead of saying 10 is equal to x over 5, what if we had 3 variables instead, like speed is equal to distance over time, and I asked you to rearrange for d? How would you do that? Well, you do it exactly the same way that you solved when we're working with only one variable. Alright, so however you solved this one, you're going to use the same problem solving strategy to solve this one to rearrange for distance. So, as a little refresher here, 10 equals x over 5, multiply both sides by the 5, which is the denominator, and 10 times 5 is x. If we're working instead with speed equals distance over time, we do the same thing. The t is going to have something happen to it. It's exactly what happened to the 5. We're going to multiply both sides by t. Multiply by t. Multiply by t. This t cancels with this t. And now we have s times t equals d. So we have just rearranged our speed equation to solve for distance. Alright, there we go. What if we were asked instead not to solve for d, but we were asked to solve for t? How would you rearrange this equation to solve for t? Alright, so here we go. Let's do what we just did, and let's use something you're more familiar with to solve. What if I asked you 20 equals 3 over x, and I asked you to solve for x? What would you do there? Because you're going to be doing the same kind of thing to rearrange for t. Okay? First thing you would do is you would multiply both sides times x. So here we go. You would multiply both sides times x. And that would make our x's cancel. And you have x times 20 equals 3. But you're not done yet. Then you would divide both sides by 20, wouldn't you? So let me show you that one. You dissolve both sides by 20. You'd say this by 20. You'd have this one divided by 20. Our 20s would cancel, leaving us with x equals 3 divided by 20. Alright. And we did that, we get a number like 0.15. Now, Significant figures have not gone away. We're going to have to be doing significant figures, but we're not going to do it quite yet. Let's now take our problem with 3 variables. Speed is distance divided by time, and I've asked you to rearrange this equation for time. You're going to do the same thing that you did when you had 20 equals 3 divided by x. So the s is like the 20, the d is like the 3, and the t is like the x. Right? Just like we multiplied both sides by 20, multiply both sides by x and then divided by 20, we're going to do the same thing with our s equals d over t. So first thing that we do is we multiply both sides by t, and that makes the times cancel. So now we have s times t equals d, but we want t by itself, so what do? We divide both sides by s. Now our s's cancel, leaving us with time is equal to distance divided by speed. Alright, we're going to work on problem solving, and it's going to incorporate dimensional analysis, rearranging equations, and sig figs. Before we do that though, I would like you to work on a worksheet that works just on practicing rearrangings. You may, if you have to, you may rearrange one of these equations after you put the numbers in. Alright, I'm going to show you what I mean by that in a minute. It is much better if you learn how to rearrange equations first and then plug your values in. It's a science skill that's going to be important to you down the road, so I'm going to encourage you to start practicing that now, and I'll show you that as we get into these examples. So pause. You're going to get the worksheet on rearranging equations. I'd like you to fill that out. Your teacher has a key for that, and she can go over that with you as soon as you guys have gotten enough done and you're ready to go over it. Alright. So, we're going to wrap all this together. We're going to solve problems, we're going to do dimensional analysis, we're going to rearrange equations, and we're going to do sig figs. Why is she screaming? She's screaming because that's a lot to do all at once. But you guys can do it. I know. I'm going to ask you in these problems to show your work. When I say show your work, what do I mean? I mean something very, very specific, and you must do this to get full credit on a problem. First thing that you do is you show me what you know. So what's given to you in the problem, and I'll give you an example of this in a minute. Then you tell me what you're trying to find, then you write the equation, and then you rearrange and you fill in the equation, or if you have to, you fill in the equation and then you rearrange. And then you give me the answer with units and the correct significant figures. Now, if you really didn't learn significant figures very well in our significant figure Moodle assignment that you did a little while ago in class, you need to revisit that home. You have to be good at sig figs. Alright. This isn't going to make a whole lot of sense until we actually start practicing, but I want to read through these now. You can do conversions using dimensional analysis in either step 1 or step 4. So you can do them at the very beginning in the what do you know step, or in the rearrange fill in step. You can rearrange the equation first, then plug in the numbers, or you can plug the numbers in first. Again, it's better if you rearrange the equation first. And if you plan on doing any kind of math or science in the future, like going into medicine or going to engineering, then you really do especially want to practice rearranging the equations first. Alright, now, you should have a paper with a couple example problems on it. And the first problem should have something to do with a tiger. And I'm going to stop this recording, and we're going to move on to part 4 for the actual examples of the recording. So get this paper out, but you don't have to do anything on it yet, because I'm going to walk you through it.